local today. You're in Manchester and the sun's out.
I think that's a bit naughty to say things like that, but you're absolutely right, yeah. I mean, one of the reasons we turned the cricket square here around to play north-south, it's unusual to play east-west, was that we had problems at the end of the season with the setting sun. And when you tell people you got problems with the setting sun in Manchester, they think you're joking.
In all seriousness, the weather has played havoc to Lancashire's title aspirations in past seasons. Is it an issue, and how are you going to get around that this season?
It is an issue, you're absolutely right. I think it's true to say that most of the counties that are down the western side of the country suffer from this, you know, Gloucester, Worcester, Lancashire. Whereas if you look over on the eastern side, you look at the number of times the championship's been won over there. I know there's been some good sides as well, Yorkshire, Essex. But there's probably, in my time here in the last 20 years, 3 times we probably could have won the championship and the weather's interrupted. But I think what you have to say is, look, that's the problem, we just have to overcome it really, and it's as simple as that. You just got to win a few more matches than everybody else. So
what are the expectations for this new season that's fast approaching?
I think at the start of every season, every club in the land would tell you that they're looking forward to it, because you always think you're going to win all 4 competitions at the start of the season. It's naturally optimistic. But I think this season it's slightly different for us because of our redevelopment here and the financial constraints at the moment. We've got the smallest squad we've ever had. I think we've got a squad of 17 people. But I think the plus side of that has been that a lot of them are youngsters, and they've seen that they've got a great opportunity to stake their place in the side. And Peter Moores, the head coach, was saying to me only last week that he said it's been a really competitive pre-season. So, you know, when people least expect it, because we've got a small squad, we might actually have a successful season, but we'll keep it dark until we start.
So what's the priority this season? Is it the one-day stuff or the longer format?
I think you want to have a crack at everything when you start. You know, not having won a championship here for whatever it is, 74 years, people would love to win that, to remove the millstone from round the neck, if you like. But of course, you know, the popular competition now is 2020 competition, and with the prospect of possibly getting into the Champions League at the end of it. So I think there'll be a group of people who'd want to win the 2020. There'll be the diehards and probably the players who would like to win the championship. But I think in all honesty, if you come away with a Peter Silverware at the end of the season, you're quite satisfied really.
So where do you stand in the debate of 2020 versus the longer format? Is the longer format eventually going to become extinct, or is it strong enough to withstand the pressure that the short game's putting on it?
Well, the championship's been a very robust competition over the years, and people have often said, oh, you know, it's the end of 4-day cricket, the end of 5-day cricket. I do believe that the longer form of the game, the interest will diminish in it as time goes by, but it's still a very solid base, and it's actually where a lot of players learn the technique to play in the one-day game. But clearly there is, you know, we've seen with the recent World Cup, you know, the huge popularity of one-day games. I don't think the championship will ever die. I certainly hope it doesn't, because that's what I was brought up on. But the one-day game is obviously the most popular form. We have to accept that.
So Test cricket in particular still has a future, in your opinion?
I don't think it. I think it's got a future, but I don't think it'll ever be as popular as it has been maybe 20 years ago, even 30 years ago. We've seen around the world where places like India, Pakistan, and to a lesser degree Australia, except when England are there, how Test match crowds are falling. So far, we're probably the only country where they're not actually falling. People, you know, Test match cricket is still popular here, but I still believe that will be under pressure in time. You know, 5-day cricket in this day and age is difficult for people to understand, particularly people who are coming into the game new. You know.
So how important is Test cricket to Lancashire County cricket? Obviously, you want the England internationals to be played up here, Test match one day. What are you doing to try and encourage the England Cricket Board to bring games up north for the northern audience? Well,
we knew a few years ago that our facilities here weren't measuring up to the standards that ICC and ECB wanted, and that's the reason we've set on this redevelopment programme, which we set off about 6 years ago. And hopefully, well, I say hopefully, we know that by April 2013 this ground will be completely transformed. You can see behind me here the point, which is the first phase of this. We hope to be getting on with the second phase of it in June this year. because it's essential that we have test matches here. We've got a big ground, and therefore we're set up to stage big games. And if you don't have those big games, you find it very difficult to survive. Without test match cricket, Lancashire County Cricket Club obviously wouldn't be the same size of club as it is today.
Now you faced opposition against some of your plans. Whereabouts do you stand in that, and how far along the process are you?
Well, the opposition has come from a rival company that wanted to develop a supermarket on the nearby White City Retail Park just up the road, and their planning got turned down, and ours was actually passed at the same time, at the same meeting, because a lot of the cross-subsidy for our development comes from Tesco stores. We know now that the company that's opposing us, or opposing Trafford as it were, because that's where the opposition comes from against the council for planning, can't build what they want to build anyway, even if our planning was quashed. So it's been a bit of a battle through the course, and this is the 7th attempt at the moment for them to quash our planning. We find it a bit of a mystery really, because there's no commercial gain for them even if our planning is quashed. So all they would be doing if they succeed is just spoiling Lancashire County Cricket Club really, which seems pointless.
Who's going to be the key player this season for you?
There's a lot of key players in there. Stephen Moore's come back from his injury last year against Essex. We'll have Jimmy Anderson for a couple of 4-day games, which is always great because Jimmy always does well for us when he plays, and we invariably win when he plays as well. I think where the coach has got to decide is I think there's a combination of players waiting to open the innings, and some youngsters like Carl Brown, even Gareth Cross, who's come in as wicket-keeper this year for the first time on a regular basis, might be looking to stake their place high up in the order. Now, I couldn't tell you at the moment who's going to open the innings on Friday. I mean, that's one for the coach. But I'll be interested to see who it is. He's been watching very closely with our pre-season practice games at Kent and then at the universities on Saturday. So I'm going to look with great interest to see who's going to be starting off on Friday.
I know you're looking forward to seeing the overseas player in action. I mean, how does that signing come about? Is it a process of eliminating who you want, or is it just basically seeing who's available?
Well, Maharoof, coming from Sri Lanka, we'd almost accepted that we weren't going to have an overseas player this year. Again, going back to the financial constraints with fighting the planning case and the development. And then this lad's agent came to us and he said, look, we're not going to be asking for the sort of money that most overseas players ask for, or that he would normally ask for. He's played 20-odd test matches, 90-odd one-day internationals, I think. He's prepared to come here at a much lower salary than overseas players would do, because he wants an opportunity to show what he can do, not only for the club, but he wants to get back in the Sri Lanka side as well. So it works for both parties. So really, I mean, it's one of those situations where we might have got a little nugget really, by waiting so long, because normally you try and get your overseas players signed up long before the season, and we hadn't done that, and then suddenly this lad came along. So fingers crossed that he does really well and gets himself back in the Sri Lanka side, but not till after the season, please.
So if we were to come back at the end of the season, what would you be hoping to tell us? How many competitions would you like to have won, or is it about consolidation in this difficult financial time?
Well, I think your first thing is you want to stay in the first division of the Championship. That's what you always want to do. But we want to win something as well. We've not won trophies here for a bit now, probably getting 10, 11 years. And in the 90s, the club was spoilt because I think we won something like 9 one-day trophies in something like 8 years or 7 years. It was quite extraordinary. They did double twice, the 2 cup competitions. So we want to get back to those winning ways, really. But if we've got 2 trophies on the sideboard in September, I'll be absolutely delighted. If we got 4, of course, well, I mean...